I joined a company and I was the global head of PMO. That there was a new guy, so we had a meeting. After the meeting, I sent the email summary. The day after, the guy replies, "Just one thing is not completely clear. If I got it right, this is like that." To which I replied, "Well, that's not correct." Now, all until that moment, everything was fine. Just few minutes after my email, my manager calls me and she goes like, "Bruno, but you cannot write anything like that." I said, "What did I write?" She said, "You cannot write 'that's not correct' to a French person based in France in this company." The biggest challenge is that you have very different audiences. You have executives, sponsors, then the project teams. And the type of communication that you need to have with these two different directions, it's very different. So you need to adapt your communication style to the right audience. And if you don't, that is where you have problems. How can you overcome those challenges? My absolutely number one piece of advice.
We are joined by an outcome-driven leader with over 20 years of experience, transforming multinational organizations through high-performing PMOs, strategic alignment, and efficient project delivery. He was formerly a global head of PM for a Fortune 500 company. He now leads his own company, specializing in project management, leadership, and business transformation. As a coach and mentor, he has empowered individuals with tailored guidance on leadership, career growth, and project management. As a dynamic speaker, he inspires action with compelling keynotes and real-world insights. His passion for building success drives businesses and individuals to achieve their highest potential. I am so happy to have Bruno Morgante join us today. Thanks for joining us, Bruno.
Thank you very much, Justus. Really, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here and to have this beautiful conversation with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Our topic today is essential communication skills, tools, and techniques for PMO leaders. And this conversation is tailored for new PMO leaders, current PMO leaders, or even project managers who aim to be PMO leaders someday. And even for entrepreneurs who will lead their programs or portfolios, this is going to be also beneficial for them. Now, my first question for Bruno, to have the audience connect with the real person. The first question I have is, Bruno, what first drew you into project management? Then how did that culminate into becoming a PMO leader?
Yeah, well, it's quite a long story. It started roughly 20 years ago, a little bit more than 20 years ago. It's when I started my corporate career. I started as an intern in a French multinational company, and I was doing a lot of things. So officially, let's say my title was business analyst, but I was really doing several things, supporting my manager, which was the country IT director for Italy, which is my country. So one day, the guy approached me and he tells me, "Bruno, I think you would be a perfect project manager." And I was a little bit surprised because at that time, I didn't have any particular positive experience about project management. The only project managers that I saw until that time, they were external consultants that were joining that company and basically coming in, giving a couple of instructions, assigning tasks, and coming back the following week just to see the progresses, which it's really not what project management is about, but that was what I had in my head. Anyway, so I started following, of course, his request, and he assigned me first to small, very, very small projects, and then managing work packages in bigger projects. And I started to love it. I was good and I started to love it. And so it began. And after that, it's being assigned to bigger projects, then it is programs, then it is multi-million-dollar programs. And then in 2017, during a big important reorganization in the company I was working for, that is when I got the opportunity to take the lead of the PMO that I was a part of. And since that moment, over the last 8 years, I have been building, developing, and leading PMOs. And now it is one of the services that we offer to our clients. It's about helping them setting up their project delivery team, upskill their PMO, and bring it to the right level.
Awesome. Thank you for walking us through that journey. And I do appreciate that. And I hope that aspiring PMO leaders or experienced PMO leaders would also have that in context, basically hear that and understand that, the journey could be in different ways, could come up in different, but yours is quite not strange. Some people come from very funny backgrounds, medicine, for example, and then one thing leads to another. So you did mention, of course, eventually you became a PMO leader and started leading a PMO. Now, for those who don't really understand who a PMO leader is and what the responsibility of a PMO leader is, and even what is a PMO, can you help to define what a PMO is and who a PMO leader is and what are the responsibilities of a PMO leader?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with the basics. So PMO stands most of the time for Project Management Office. Now I say most of the time because the initial P could actually mean different things. It could be program, it could be portfolio, but let's say these are different variations. They are not exactly the same things, but let's try to keep it simple. And when we can say that a PMO is an element in an organization that connects together different things. And clearly it must connect together the company strategy, those brilliant ideas and the goals which are written on the walls and they are in fancy PowerPoint presentations. This to connect all of that with the execution and the execution of those initiatives, of the projects that are related to those ideas. And this is oversimplifying, but this is really how you can see a PMO, like a core central function that brings structure and oversight, definitely projects. It needs to provide guidance. It needs to ensure that those projects are actually delivering value to the organization. And as a PMO leader, you are the person in charge for that team. It is definitely a team leadership position. It is not an individual contributor. So it's not related to managing a specific process or a specific tool or a specific project. It is managing a team of people which are supporting the organization on those different items. It is a role that includes a few important elements. For sure, number one, you as a PMO leader, you need to be a strategic partner for your stakeholders. You're not just someone there. You need to be really aligning with them. You need to be in a position to enable all the project teams, and there might be many in different organizations, all the project teams to actually deliver results and to add value. And this is about really supporting that team. Very, very often, you see good PMO leaders that are also acting, serving as a coach or mentors, so guiding their team, their PMO and the project teams into the whole organization or the whole department. It depends on what level that PMO is. Yes, that is in a nutshell and trying to simplifying what a PMO is and the role of a PMO leader.
Thank you for that. So some of the PMO being the vehicle through which at the line of business, probably at the line of business level, at whatever level, like you said, it could be program, it could be portfolio, helps to deliver on the strategic initiatives that are typically slapped on decks and looks pretty.
Yes, you know what? One of the things that you can consider is all organizations have those ideas, which sometimes are considered the strategic ideas and strategic objectives. How do you make it happen? And you don't always need a PMO to make them happen. But with a PMO, you definitely have a certain level of structure. And the bigger the organization is, the more important that role is going to be. And the more important and the more tangible the value is going to be. Because, of course, if you don't have it, well, the result is that you might have, every project is follow their own way of working. People speak different languages. It's like, for what is good for you, it might be very bad for me. This brings to a lot of waste of time, waste of resources, and definitely it's not good for the organization. So a PMO strategically placed, it can absolutely help organization to bring those ideas, the strategy that they have into execution.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Now, I do expect, normally in the course of events, in the course of a PMO leader, partnering with the executives to ensure that what they want or what they expect is what is being delivered, and also leading the teams when it comes to, process governance, project delivery governance, financial, fiscal responsibility, and all that. In between, there will be challenges in communication for such leaders, typically. Now, in your experience, what have you seen play out for many PMO leaders? And whether it's an aspirant, maybe it's the first PMO leadership an individual has taken or is taking, or even an experienced PMO leader, they could still have problems with communication. So what communication challenges typically present, and how have you seen those challenges?
Yes, definitely there are challenges, communication challenges for PMO leaders, not only for PMO leaders, but looking at PMO leaders, the biggest challenge, it is clearly for every PMO, not only their leader, but also the members of a PMO, it is that you have very different audiences. You have above you have your executives, the sponsors of the initiatives, the big players. But then you have the people around you. You have the project teams. And the type of communication that you need to have in these two different directions, it's very, very different. So you need to find a way to adapt your approach, your communication style to the right audience. And if you don't, that is definitely where you have problems. You might finish into a trap of communicating poorly, or you might finish into a position in which you are having a steering committee with executives, and you spend all the time, the limited time available that you have, discussing about details which might be incredibly important for the technical experts into that project team, but they are absolutely relevant for the executives. You absolutely need to understand what are the messages to provide to the right audience at the right time. And I have to say that, so you asked also, how can you overcome those challenges? Like, okay, these are the challenges. What can you do? My absolutely number one piece of advice on this topic, it is to start to do one of the most underrated skills in this profession, which is listening. Actively listening to your audience, listening to understand, not to reply. This is one of the things that I often say in my speeches. It's so important to listen to what the person that you have on the other side of the table, independently if they are executives or member of a project team. Listen to them, listen to their needs, their pain points, and that is the foundational element to have a proper communication.
Awesome. Now, we're about to begin to get granular with each category of stakeholder, type of stakeholder, right? We can begin with senior leadership. And thank you, you did mention that sometimes you could have detail important for a technical SME, and you end up having that technical. Some of the executives might also need some grain of detail. Now, getting granular when communicating with senior leaders, what does a PMO leader need to do to establish or to clarify the communication needs of the senior leadership, first of all, and how can you begin to bridge the gaps with regards to those needs?
Before I answer that, just one additional thing you mentioned before, maybe some executives might want to have details. It is true. I mean, it's what I said before. You need to listen and understand what are their needs. Once, and for a few number of years, I had the chief information officer of my department, in which I was at that time a program manager. That guy was a C-level, but he was so much into the details, and he knew the things, like he knew the technical things, and he wanted to know all of that. You could not just avoid things saying, well, we have a delay. He wanted to know exactly what was causing. So In that case, in that specific situation, it was important to provide the right level of detail, and everybody in the organization knew that that was expected. Now, in general, whenever you are trying to communicate with executives, whatever it is, being this good news, bad news, you need to provide the information and show them what is the impact from their point of view. Look at things from their perspective. An example that I made the other day with one of my coachees, it was about a delay in the data migration stream of the project she's managing. Going to an executive and just mentioning that there is an issue that is creating a delay into the data migration stream, it means nothing to the executive. But if you might give it in another perspective, so for example, it could be, well, look, because of that, you will not be able to provide on time the product that you have discussed with that important customer. Now you have the attention of the executive. And this is when you can put on the table the details of the problem for the data migration issue, and potentially the executive ask for help to get it fixed, to mobilize the right resources, to assign whatever that is needed to make it work. So it's important to understand the needs on the other side and ensure that you provide information and the picture from their perspective. And let me add also this. One of the things that as a PMO leader you have to do, it is always, because you are, as I said before, you are in this central position between the strategic and the execution, the operational, the tactic activities. You need to be able to connect the dots. You absolutely need to be able to connect the dots between what are the operational problems or the activities that are going on and the impact on a much bigger picture on the business side. That is one of the key elements that you need to master as a PMO leader. Absolutely.
Awesome. In line with that, one opportunity could arise for you to establish this is a technical senior leader, this is a non-technical senior leader, right? And that helps you to manage what information goes which way. But I guess for an SLT, a general SLT conversation, you want to keep things concise and crisp and straight to the point, right?
Absolutely. Keep it short. Like there are still a lot of executives out there, maybe all of them, I don't know. But I've met a lot of them like this, which are basically telling you, you only have 5 minutes of my time. And that's it. You have 5 minutes and you need to go straight to the point. Well, there are others that they want a complete story. You have to understand what they want and then adjust your communication accordingly. In general, for sure, I would say the majority of executives, they don't have time and they care about their objectives, which most of the time looks at numbers. So make things that are relatable to what they are interested in and make it short, crisp, and to the point.
Awesome. Let's take one practical scenario before we move on to the next bucket of questions. You have a disagreement between senior leaders, right, regarding priorities and expectations. How should a PMO leader handle that discord or that disagreement in expectations and priority between senior executives?
Yeah, it can happen. It can happen between executives. It can happen between executives and PMO leaders, or between them and the project, the wider project organization. What is important, it is definitely keep emotions aside and try to have a conversation that is focused on data. Use some kind of metrics and evidences that you might have to bring the conversation to the right track, to guide the discussion. That helps to potentially going away from the highest paid person opinion versus, well, this is actually what we have agreed, and it could be an agreement at a strategic level, it could be at portfolio level, it could be at a lower level, it could be when you look at the scope of a project. If something has been agreed and then suddenly there is a different conversation about different views, different opinions, well, then try to bring it back to that and say, hey, look, this is what we have agreed, this is what the team is working on. If there is a change, we better have a conversation right now and agree on what is the right path or the right thing to do. It's better to have that conversation and don't leave that conversation without a decision. That's a mistake that, especially when you are young and not really experienced, you frequently do. You have to trigger a chat and you have the opinion that, okay, they will figure it out. They don't. They will not figure it out. So you need to be the one to ensure that they figure it out together with your help and bring them to a point in which a decision is taken. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, so we can move on to the next bucket of questions. The PMO leader and the IC, the project team. So what are the specific communication requirements, within the PMO, and how can PMO leaders best bridge those needs?
In my opinion, when you look at the communications between a PMO leader and their team, so let's say within a PMO, within a project team, I believe that you have the same requirements, the same needs that you have in any team, because it's a team, it's a group of people that needs to achieve something working together. I would say communication must be clear. So as I said before, don't leave space for interpretation, make it clear, ensure that everyone gets it. Remember that communication is not what you say, but it is what the other understand. So make it very clear, ensure that it is aligned with the vision that you have. If it is the vision that is the direction of your team, like you want that PMO to go in that direction, well, ensure that everything is aligned into that. Don't provide different messages. So on one side you say we need to save money, we need to apply cost saving and so on. And then at the same time, you announce that there is a new big project that is going to cost millions to the organization. Well, people are starting to wonder, how are the two things related? Maybe they are, but you need to ensure that this is very clearly visible to them. And this, again, as I said, it happens within a PMO, within a project team, within any team. And sometimes when I mention this, because of course, if you hear me speaking, this is not the first time that I touch this point about the importance of having a clear vision and to communicate it very clearly. If you are in that situation and you say, well, I don't have one, well, then spend the time working on it, because it's incredibly important. Otherwise, your communication will never really work. And yes, then overall, I think another important element that you have, especially in project teams and PMOs, keep in mind that everyone is busy. So don't play the game of bringing everyone into whatever type of session, whatever type of communication event, whatever type of meeting. Do find the right audience for the right thing. So if you don't need the whole project team to address a topic and you only need 2-3 people, ensure that you have a meeting with these 2-3 people, and then they will have their part informing the rest. But that's, again, it's something that sometimes you see, especially in project teams, that someone say, but if we discuss this topic, I need to bring that person, then I need to bring that person, then I need to bring the vendor, then I need to bring the commercial, and then you have a meeting of 35 people where actually none is actually speaking because they are afraid to speak in front of so many others, and so on and so forth. So it's much better to have the right audience for the right message. And that is, again, it's valid for a PMO, but it's valid for any team, in my opinion.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for that. So basically, in addition to whatever meetings you will normally have at Cadence, right? Focused set of folks based on whatever agreement, whatever understanding you have, and based on whatever methodology you're going with as PMO. Any other ad hoc meetings should be, to be effective, to be a few people to get to the point and get value out of that. Thank you so much.
Let me add this. Then, when you have a framework you mentioned where you already have a set of communication bodies, ensure that you review it. Because sometimes one of the problems that you have is that you put in place something and then it's written in stone and you don't change it anymore, which is a problem, because things might still happen, but people don't actually care. So if you realize that you have a weekly meeting and that doesn't benefit anyone, well, then get rid of the weekly meeting or change it into something else, which might be more meaningful. So it's important to keep this, which again, it's a concept of continuous improvement that you absolutely need to have in a PMO. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, a PMO lead or a program lead could eventually find, in many cases, they find that beyond or outside their own team, they need to coordinate communication across multiple projects, across multiple programs. Now, how can PMO leaders keep communication consistent? The quality of the communication, the clarity of the communication across teams, across leaderships, and what tools? Now let's get to tools, right? We've spoken a lot to the other aspects. What tools come into play in that regard?
Mm-hmm. I think this is a lot related to the framework that you mentioned before. The idea of having, when you are leading a PMO, you need to have a common framework to approach communication. Across projects, you need to have the same way of reporting, the same formats. You need to use the same tools. You cannot have a project team that is reporting in PowerPoint and another one that is reporting in a real-time online dashboard. That doesn't work. Everyone needs to use the same format, the same tools, and of course the same periodicity. So if the organization expects every project to provide their update, let's say on a weekly basis, well, that must be the case. Now, at the same time, as a PMO leader, you need to know and you need to consider that depending on the projects and what are the stakeholders involved on those projects, you might have specific needs, specific requirements. So it's important to have the flexibility and to be ready to adapt, but you need to have at least a common framework which is known to everyone and that is respected by the different project teams. So, as a PMO, you definitely need to do it. You need to keep that under control.
Awesome. One beautiful thing I'm learning is to ensure that we don't assume. We leave room for adaptability. We leave room for, even if we have established governance frameworks, and as each project comes up, they tell you tailor the project to the specific set of artifacts and what products and stuff like that. And even though you have those standards, quote unquote, standards in place, you also want to be sensitive to what is really happening at the project team level, and even with your stakeholders, you want to be sensitive to, okay, what kind of communication will be very useful, very helpful for everyone across board. So that's something I'm reminded of here. So I go straight jacket, but being agile, being adaptable, being sensitive.
It's so important, because if you don't do it, then you end up in the typical trap of it is written like this, we decided already, you have to follow it. Even if it's a nonsense, you have to do it, because and nobody wants to be into that. Like, we are part of those type of situations every day in our daily lives when we have to go through regulations, paying taxes, and we don't like it. None of us likes it. So why do you have to bring it to organizations where you can actually do things? You should do things in the best possible way. It's important to understand. And in my experience, the typical scenario is when there is a project or a set of projects, part of a program, which has a very particular governance, which might be, I don't know, directly with the president of the company or whatever. And then basically that program team will tell you, okay, dear head of PMO, we have our own defined program governance because we need to follow the guidelines of the big boss. It's fine. Like, it's important that you take it, you are okay. If the content is still relevant for you, you can use the same information for whatever type of reporting you provide. but it is also necessary that you communicate it on the other side. What you don't want it is that at a certain point they are in trouble, and someone comes to you say, hey, but you were not supporting them, and like, just make it clear that there is a dedicated way of working, a dedicated space communication protocol, and so on. But absolutely, it's important to be flexible on that.
Flexible. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. So let's get a bit personal.
Because this was not personal until now.
Can you share an example of a communication challenge you faced as a PMO leader, and how you got to wade through that?
Well, here you see there are so many stories that I could share, but I think a good one is this one. So recently I joined a company, and I was their global head of PMO. It was a big company, Fortune 500. For me, it was a very different industry compared to my previous experiences. So one day, recently after I joined, there was a new guy as well, which joined a little bit after me. And the guy was another vice president in France. So we had a meeting, the two of us, and it was about how do we run projects in this organization. And specifically, he wanted to know something related to the French portfolio, which is what he was interested in. After the meeting, I think it was, same day, I sent the email summary with all the details that he required, the access to the things. And, it's like, okay, hey, dear new guy, here is the thing that we discussed. Let me know if you have any question, blah, blah, blah. So the day after, the guy replies to me with telling me, okay, so just one thing is not completely clear. If I got it right, this is like that. To which I replied, well, that's not correct. The real way is this, and this. Now, until that moment, everything was fine. Now, the problem is that in copy of the two of us, there were our two managers, which were two global senior vice presidents. And just a few minutes after my email, my manager calls me, and she goes like, Bruno, but you cannot write anything like that. I said, what did I write? She said, you cannot write that's not correct to a French person based in France in this company. And that was a lesson that I had to learn. That type of communication, direct, to the point, no fluffy things. It is what I have done in the previous 20 years of roughly something of my career. And it was working, absolutely. It was what made me successful as a communicator. But in that environment, it was different. So the lesson that I want to share is, even if you are a great communicator and you know all the techniques and the tools, you need to read your room. You need to read the environment in which you are, and you need to adapt to that environment. And that is
Awesome. Yeah. I'm sure you've had over 20 years of experience. I'm sure you have so many. But one good thing is the key lesson that you learned, being able to read the room. Reading the room, many of us don't. Even sometimes we get emotional in the thick of the moment, and we want to respond, want to just do things immediately. Same thing, my own manager right now, what she does is she'll like, no, read the mail, walk away. Just walk away. Give it a few minutes or hours. Ignore the fact that someone said respond immediately. No, ignore that. Breathe, come back to it, and give an objective feedback. Period. Data, just like you said, an objective data-based feedback response, as opposed to, and you also want to be sensitive regarding the person you're responding to, right? Their culture, their context, and so forth. Thank you so much for that. Now, layering on that, what final words would you have for PMO leaders, whether it's aspiring, those who will newly be PMO leaders in 2025 or in the future, or even experienced PMO leaders? What final words do you have for that?
My final words for this conversation, because I hope they are not my final words, but let's say for this conversation, I think my final words are that I believe the future is bright for project management professionals, PMO leaders, everyone involved into managing projects and adding value through projects. It is something that it's big. It's something that we feel now, and it is continuously going to grow. So the future is bright, but you have to approach it in a certain way. You need to be someone that is proactively embrace change. Being reactive is absolutely not enough anymore. You need to embrace change. You need to adapt constantly because the world around us is changing at a speed that we have not seen before. But still, at the bottom of this embracing change and adapt, you need to keep what is your purpose? Why are you doing what are you doing? And that purpose, leading with that purpose, it is something that you still need to have. I think that would be my final words. Yes.
Thank you. So final words for this interview.
For this interview, yes.
Thank you so much for that. Awesome. My hope is that for the audience, as an aspiring PM or experienced PM, you've enjoyed the conversation, or you have been reminded of a few things that you have forgotten. To learn more about Bruno, I know he will touch on that because I will still ask him a few questions shortly, but to learn more about Bruno, he does have a website, brunomorgante.com. The phone name will be on the screen, and he does have his own LinkedIn profile as well, which would also be on the screen. But in addition to those, Bruno, do you have any specific service or workshop coming up shortly that should interest the audience or they should look out for?
I would say for the time being, yes, my website, brunomorgante.com, is the best place to look up for me and to get in touch if you have any question, if you want to continue the conversation or what. Services, there are a lot, and I'm speaking at a lot of events, so you might be seeing me there. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you find where I am. I'll be definitely in Riyadh at the Global Project Management Forum soon. I will be after summer in Prague again, potentially another couple of locations in Europe. So yeah, moving around and visiting. Nothing specific that I would say, but have a look. And if you are around, absolutely, let's get in touch.
Awesome. All right. So if you have enjoyed the episode, we ask that you leave a comment sharing what resonated with you the most. And if you have questions, please ask so that those questions can either be passed across to Bruno, or if it's something that I can answer, I can definitely give you feedback. We value your feedback because your success as an IT project manager, as a program lead, as a PMO lead matters to us, and it helps the world. But above all, never forget, every man is the architect of his own fortunes. Till next time, thank you.